The body is a living library that stores everything we've ever been through. And so all this trauma, all this shame, all this unprocessed stuff is still in my body because children adapt, right? We figure out how to stay safe. And so one of my strategies was, I'll be a good Christian boy when I'm at home, and I will be an absolute murderer outside.
That thing happens that changes the way you view the world, and you go, man, this is... For me, I went through a divorce. I had major health issues. I had all these complications. And looking back on them now, as I'm sure you do, it's like, man, thank God that I had that catalyst.
What imprisons you also points to your freedom. So the very thing that you're hiding, that's been imprisoning you, is actually the key to your actual freedom, like real talk.
Oldish, the show where age-old questions meet new-age answers. With your hosts, Randy Spelling, Brian Austin Green, and Sharna Burgess.
Preston Smiles, welcome to Oldish.
Yeah, we are super excited to have you with us.
All right, Preston, so good to have you here with us.
How are you, sir?
I'm amazing, man. Living the dream.
So now we've seen, I just want to, for people that are watching, to wonder what was in your hand. You were telling us the story. That is a deer antler that you have. That's unbelievable. I love that. So I've seen people using those tools where they can actually, you can get in and kind of dig in and massage muscles and stuff in your back.
Yeah.
And he's got an absolutely natural one that he found.
Very cool.
Exactly.
Very cool. Preston, you're an abundance coach, which I think is amazing. You also have a new book coming out called The Spiritual Millionaire. Please tell us more about that. That is incredible. Let's do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an important subject. And, you know, I've been going on podcasts and doing my thing for a very long time. And oftentimes, because I've coached hundreds of thousands of people, I've led workshops all over the world, and people will ask me, like, what are the main issues you see? And it's an easy answer. It's sex, money, parents. Everything comes down to sex, money, and parents. And usually parents hits all of them. And yet there are certain subjects that there's so much misinformation. And particularly when it comes to people who are of the artist type, spiritual types, people who are into self-development, there's this taboo sort of, oh, money is bad thing around it. And the book is called Spiritual Millionaire. The subtitle is Unlock the 7 Inner Laws of Abundance and Money. And the abundance part is the most important part. I was a surf instructor 10 years ago. And now I'm a multimillionaire and all that stuff.
Wait, where do you live?
I lived in L.A. I was a surf instructor in Venice Beach. I now live in Buda, Texas.
Surfing
Amazing.
still.
Not as much surfing. So this is amazing.
I do, though. I do behind a boat.
Yeah.
Love that. This is amazing because you are so right. I'm a creative person and I'm surrounded by creative people, and very often there is that taboo talk around money, that like you do it for the love of the art, you know, or whatever that is. There is a taboo talk around it. I would even label myself as a creative, just not that great at money. I'm great at making it and it coming to me, but I'm kind of not that great at
I'm really
money.
Great at going on Amazon and going, ooh, I need that.
Say less, baby, say less.
And then that box is at my front door. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad I worked harder all week because now I have a bounce house.
God, you know? I guess. So this is me. Hi, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
But this is an incredible concept. So you said there are the 7 laws. Can you take us through like sort of what some of those are, if not all of them?
Yeah, I'll speak to a few of them. I think the main thing that I want to convey, that I'm conveying in this book, which comes out in September, but you can pre-order it now, is that we are threefold beings: body, mind, and soul. We're at our most powerful when all three are aligned. The thing that most people do when it comes to abundance and money and everything is they think it's all mindset work. But the biggest thing we got going is our bodies. And the body remembers what the mind forgets. And so when you free the body, when you elevate the nervous system, right? When we heal the trauma and the toxic shame and all the stuff that we've carried from our dad, his dad, and his dad, from our mom, and her mom, and the societal stuff, when you heal and clean up your own plate, there is all this space to not just attract and play with the materials of the world, but to truly be in love with all of it, like every single bit of it, not just when it's going good and right, but to be entrenched in life in such a way that you're high on your own supply. Like that is a part of why I believe I'm so uniquely positioned, because I have friends that have quote unquote more money than me, but everybody would agree that I'm the wealthiest because I love my fucking life always. Like I have four kids under 6 years old, one wife, 5 businesses, 6 houses. I'm holding a whole bunch, right? I take care of about 25 people every single month. And yet with all of that, I find a way to genuinely smile and to like love the whole process.
Wow.
Is that because you're so tuned in to, I hear you talk a lot about through you, right? This idea that things, that the universe, that God, however you want to define that for yourself, that it moves through you. Do you think that is one of the reasons why you feel so wealthy?
Absolutely. I have a mentor. His name is Michael Beckwith. He lives out there in LA. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of him, but he says that the best ability is availability. And I'll say that differently. The fruit doesn't belong to the tree. The fruit belongs to the ecosystem. And so each and every one of us is our own tree with our own fruit. And as we give of that fruit, we create a circulation, right? So the game is to be as available as humanly possible. I break it down. There are 4 levels of consciousness. To me, first stage, right? Traffic, it's Trump's fault, it's Biden's fault, it's my wife, it's X, it's the kids, it's Y, whatever it is, right? Second stage, by me, right? This is the Gary V, the Grant Cardone, I'll make it happen, I'll will it into existence. Third stage, which is the one I try to operate from as much as possible, is through me. This is where we say, Spirit, God, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, Source, Divine Intelligence, use me today. What would you have me say? What would you have me do? Who would you have me bless now, wherever I am? And then the fourth stage is as me consciousness. This is the Christ consciousness, the Buddha nature. This is that moment on Mali or ayahuasca or in church where you're like, yeah, it's all God, right? Like that, like operating from that space.
Ooh, that's beautiful. I love all of that.
What was your moment? I mean, did you come out of the womb and you were like, okay, this is going to happen through me. I'm feeling life through myself. Or was there
an ayahuasca session that you were like, whoa,
right.
This is what it is. Like, whoa.
Which I would suggest to people, by the way. I think that's a fantastic push in a new direction.
But usually there's a struggle. Like usually there's some friction and there's a struggle and there's that moment. What was yours?
Yeah, man, it's been, I'll be 44 in a month and a day, I believe. And I've had quite a few of them. One of the more recent ones was my wife and I getting to the point of potentially divorcing. And that was a whole nother wake up to some of the programming and the conditioning that I had still been operating from. Now, I'll go back a little bit. I grew up in LA. I grew up in a time where gang activity and all that stuff was really high. And because my dad was battling his own demons with drugs and all the things, and my mom was super stressed out, and I got placed in special education because they couldn't figure out that I was dyslexic and that I just had a different genius that they couldn't box, right? And so with all of those circumstances, I became two things. One, an out-of-the-way kid, because children adapt, right? We figure out how to stay safe. And so one of my strategies was, I'll be a good Christian boy when I'm at home, and I will be an absolute murderer outside. And because you can't beat the biology, right? The body is going to have its say while you're in the body. And so this, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old little boy body has all this testosterone pumping through it. I had to get it out somewhere. And so I became this out-of-the-way kid that would then express this rage and all these things that my family, which was one of those families that never talked about the thing, right? Everybody has a different kind of dysfunctional family thing. Mine was, we just don't talk about the elephant in the room, right? Like, no, we're fine. Everybody's fine. We're all fine, right? It's like, no, bro, we're not fine. This thing is going to hell in a handbasket, right? And so as a kid, I took on everybody's stuff and made a decision that I was going to be the man of the house by 13 years old.
You consciously made that decision, or you felt like that was what was placed on you just by your surroundings? And
no,
in fact, no.
I made that decision. Nobody told me, hey, this is what you need to do. But out of, this is deep, out of the wound, right? The adaptive child, out of this wound of being the dumb kid, right? I'm the one in special education. So, I give the example, I never broke any bones as a kid. Not because I couldn't have broke some bones, but I didn't want to add any extra stress or pressure to my family. So when everybody else was doing dumb shit, I would do it, but I would do it carefully. I would do it calculated. Right? While everybody else would get arrested and X, Y, and Z, I was already planning out escape routes for the same stuff my friends did. So I never got caught, but it was out of a wound. So now you have this calculated little 13-year-old boy who now becomes a man, and I'm in college, and first thing happened was I had a skin disease come up. And the body is a living library that stores everything we've ever been through. And so all this trauma, all this shame, all this unprocessed stuff is still in my body. And I'm in college, and I'm 18 years old, and I start to get these massive hives everywhere. Wherever the sun hits, I get hives. And nobody can figure it out. They give me steroids. I stay away from the sun. I wear gloves when I'm driving, the whole thing. Fast forward to, I'm now graduating from college. I have an MFA in theater from Louisiana State University. And I get back to LA and I start working at Abercrombie & Finch as one of those dudes with his shirt off in the front.
Standing at the door. Right, like at the Grove. Yes, exactly. You go in there and you go, oh, okay, that's a cool store to be in, right? Rope belt, the shorts. Yeah, okay. I've seen it, yeah.
That was me.
Okay.
At the Grove and at...
Wait, were you at the Grove, actually? I love that.
Yes, 3rd Street Promenade and the Grove.
I love that. Amazing.
So, I'll end this story so we could talk a little bit, but I'm there, and I'm standing in the front, and I keep telling one of my coworkers, I'm like, man, my heart keeps doing this crazy thing. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, it just speeds up really fast, and then it goes really slow. And they're like, you've been talking about that for a couple months now. You should probably get that checked out. And I'm like, I don't really do doctors. I'm black, right? Just stupid stuff, right? I am completely unconscious to all of this. Fast forward to I go to the doctor, and she says, you need a cardiologist immediately. I go to a cardiologist, they run some tests, they figure out that in my family history there is heart disease and heart attacks and all that stuff. And he says, this guy saved my life, by the way, and millions of people's lives. He said, as a doctor, I'm going to prescribe you some meds that will regulate your heartbeat for the rest of your life. As a father, as a conscious citizen, I would suggest you look at your diet and you look at your stress levels. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, well, what do you eat? And I said, I eat food. And he was like, tell me about food. I'm like, McDonald's, Burger King, just food, like what everybody else eats. And he was like, that's not food, right? And I'm like, bro, what are you talking about? I'm 25. That is food. Like that's what everybody eats. Because this is 2005 in LA. So this is not like the stuff we talk about now. Everybody, it's commonplace. It wasn't back then, right? So then he says, well, tell me about your life. And I tell him some of the stuff. And he says, young man, you are extremely stressed out. And your body is warning you. You will die if you keep doing it the way you've been doing it. And that was one of the biggest openings of my entire life, because I went cold turkey. I became a vegan. I denounced my religion. I went all in. I watched Zeitgeist and all the other conspiracy stuff. And I was like, what? And eventually I fell in love with myself and life in such a way that everybody in the LA Hollywood scene would be like, yo, Preston is on some other stuff. And they would come to me often for coaching before I knew what coaching was. And one day I was like, everybody asks the same things. I'm going to create a YouTube channel, because there's this thing called YouTube called Questions with Preston, and I'm just going to put videos up. And that is a part of what blew me up.
Wow, interesting. That's how it came to be. That's amazing.
There's always that catalyst. There's you can always look back and you see that moment, that thing happens that changes the way you view the world, and you go, man, this is, for me, I went through a divorce. I had major health issues. I had all these complications, and looking back on them now, as I'm sure you do, it's like, man, thank God that I had that catalyst. At the time when I was going through it, I was like, what purpose does this serve? This is terrible. And now looking back on it, it's like, that's the purpose that it served, because I would not be sitting here, the person that I am, if I hadn't gone through what I went through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Amazing stories. and I love the fact that I called your the exact mall that you were at. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that.
So let's go back to spiritual millionaire and this idea, because you're so right about this in the spiritual personal development communities, at least in the past. I think there is this shame, and we hold this shame of, because we know that money doesn't bring happiness. There's this ideal and this understanding that there is more to life than that. That's kind of the
I think a lot of people just say that, though, but they don't necessarily believe it like that. I think that's one of those I'm supposed to say that, money doesn't buy you happiness, but God, I wish I had $10 million, because I'd be really happy.
Right.
Well, yes, this is true. But, there have been times where I have struggled with money, and because of the way that I grew up in a famous family. My dad was a television producer, so we were affluent. We had everything, giant house, And then at some point I lived my life and didn't have that and struggled for years. And what happened in my mind was there was this glitch, and this glitch went over and over. Money, 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 money. As I was growing myself, I knew I didn't want to just focus on money, but I couldn't help it. It was in my mind. It was in my consciousness. But I did have these glimpses where I would play it out. I would future forecast, and I would go, okay, let's say I have it. I have the 5 million, the 10 million, the 50 million, I don't know, whatever it is. I'm less stressed, maybe. I have more choices, yes. But that happiness that I want, that fulfillment, that feeling inside that you talk about always, that you're high on your own supply, that supply doesn't come from things here that are monetary. And I've had those moments, right? Like being in Hawaii and looking at the beach and trying to meditate to try and glean all of it. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, I'm trying to get there, but I'm not there. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. It's a big deal. And both of you are right in the sense that there's this money doesn't buy happiness, or money is the root of all evil, and yet I still need it to pay my bills, and et cetera, et cetera. And so there's this...
right, doesn't mean I don't want some.
Right,
right.
Correct. Yeah. Which, I have this, one of the laws is called the law of the ant and the elephant. And it is essentially about relativity. That in the eyes of the universe, in the eyes of God, there's no difference between an ant and an elephant. Both are consciousness in a space. And so what we tend to do in our society is we glorify and deify the elephant. When I get that, and we skip over all the ant moments that are occurring every single day in our lives and expect, right? An unhappy journey will never produce a happy ending, but we expect it. And so a part of my work is to help people fall in love with truly, like everything that is occurring, and to actually be available, to be receptive to the abundance that's all around them, including what's happening inside of them, right? None of us consciously turned on the engine called our heart. And yet, whatever day, whatever moment that happened, it has never stopped. And how often do we stop and go, oh my goodness, bro, thank you. Like, what? I don't even have to think about this. And this thing is going, right? We just miss it because we're looking for these giant elephant moments. And I'll give you an example. The shirt all of you have on, every single one of you, me too, all of this was ours 30 years ago. All materials that find their way into your space were always yours. I'm sitting in my office. We have 3 houses on this property, right? This house was built in 2006. They didn't realize they were building it for me too. In 2006, I did not have the consciousness to understand or to even dream about this house. That's why I say don't chase dreams. You chase alignment, and when you're in alignment, dreams will chase you.
Ooh, say that again. I love that. Preach that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It's less about, because a lot of what we desire and want is programming, right? Like, it's materials, right? The distinction for most people, like with this shirt, I didn't have static on the line around the shirt because it wasn't an elephant to me. It was just consciousness. It's just materials. Most people have things on a pedestal. And the moment you have it on a pedestal, it owns you. In that moment, you are a slave. You could be a $20 million slave or a $2 slave, but you are a fucking slave if you have it there. Because it discounts what you are, right? There's no mistakes in God. And if you can look at a puppy or a rainbow or a baby giggling and go, oh my goodness, look how beautiful, and you can't do that with yourself, you're missing the whole point.
So how do we do that? How do we get ourselves on that pedestal?
Number one is you have to understand, right? I teach this, I have a workshop called the Bridge Experience, which is a somatic trauma workshop that my wife and I have been doing for 10 years. And one of the things we talk about and set up in the beginning of that workshop is that there are 4 aspects of what it means to be human. 1, we are biological beings, right? It's like, oh, there's a lot going on here. I am a physical entity. That's 1. Number 2, we are linguistic beings, which means we build worlds with our language, right? Without the distinction of door and doorknob, I couldn't get out of room, right? But when I have the language, it opens up worlds. That's number 2. Number 3, and this is the one, we are social and historical beings, born into beliefs and interpretations. So, I'll say it again, historical and social beings, born into beliefs and interpretations. Some of the biggest work in the whole world is being able to catch what you were born into and then deciding whether you want to keep it or not. Because you can't disown that which you have never owned. And so going back to your affluent family, which I think is beautiful that you got to have that experience, being able to look at that objectively and go, oh, okay, well, my dad did this and his dad did that, and this is how we got here, and we grew up in this thing. Okay, this is my programming. I grew up in this city at this time in human history, this church stuff, this school stuff, all is in this pot. Now, of this, what would I like to keep? Right? I actually have choice in the, and I mean this literally, choice in the matter. Because as I choose in to what is going to be me, it's a reclaiming. And my matter changes. When I was 25, I looked like I was 45. Now I'm 44 in a month.
And you look like you're 25.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that earlier, and I was like, he knows, I'm sure. You can't miss that. Damn, you look 25. Wow. This is, yes, sorry, continue on what you were saying. I'm captivated.
Let me just finish the fourth one because people are going to ask. The fourth aspect of what it means to be human is we're quantum beings. And that, again, is that moment when the Molly hits and you realize that there's only one of us here.
And Preston, explain that. Explain quantum, because, I mean, I think we all might know that word, use that word, but for people who are like, what is that?
It's the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, it's oneness. I don't know if any of you guys, I've been a super religious church boy, and I've done ayahuasca 31 times. I've probably had 50 psilocybin journeys, and I've done a lot. I've lived a lot of life. And there's a moment, which I've had on the Holy Ghost, right? And catching the Holy Ghost. And I've also had it on mushrooms and on MDMA. There's a moment where you're so high that you realize there is literally nothing to say, nothing to do, nowhere to go, because everything, absolutely everything is God. No, like, we can't be outside of it. That you instantly become quantum at that point. Everything collapses. There's nothing, nowhere to go. And you're just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I could just be now. I could just exist because there's nothing more to do. Now, quantum physics and all of that stuff, you guys will have to look that up for yourself. But the one that I think is the most important piece that informs all the other ones is the social and historical being born into beliefs and interpretations. And I want to give you guys one more thing that a lot of people really love. I coach a bunch of high-level people. And one of the things I coach them on when we first start is I say, okay, we're going to do what I have called joy alarms. So every day, you're going to set 3 to 5 alarms in your phone. Every time the alarm goes off, you are going to burst into spontaneous joy. Now, this can be reasonless joy, or it can have a reason attached to it. The game we want to get to is reasonless joy, where you can just literally hit the button internally and go into the highest heights of yourself, high on your own supply. The reason we do this is we are creating new neural pathways and reclaiming all of the destruction that has occurred over all these years and creating a new normal and a baseline for your vitality. Because health is wealth, right? The more energy I have in this body, the more available I am for everything else. And so I have people do those joy alarms, and it literally transforms their lives within a couple weeks. Because you do that over and over and over again. Whatever you practice more of, you get more of.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you get better at it, and it becomes more natural and more. I've found that in everything. Like in things that I was terrible at, it's like, okay, I'm just gonna like fake it till I make it. Basically, is what has worked for me.
For someone that wants to tap in, someone that's listening that's like, I want to try these joy alarms. I love that, and you're like, but I have so much negative stuff going on in my world right now. I'm really finding it hard to connect to joy. What is one tip that you could give them that's like, when that joy alarm goes off, here's a way that you can try to tap into that, to your own supply?
Easily. So here it is. I had a client like that. He was a high-level executive who had a bunch of anxiety. And he said, bro, I don't know if I can do that. I said, okay, perfect. How many kids you got? He said, I got 3. I said, awesome. How many wives you got? He said, I got 1. Okay, that's 4 alarms right there. So every single time, each one is your wife or kid. And you're just going to go into deep levels of gratitude. You are going to feel and allow your body to be hit, to be moved by how much you love these people, right? Despite all of the stuff that's occurred, can you get to a deeply loving place? And we're not going to judge it. We're just getting started. Like, I used to teach surf lessons on Venice Beach, and people would come to me and they'd be like, I almost drowned when I was 7, or I already took a lesson and X, Y, and Z, and I didn't do good. And I'd be hitting them with psychology right before we even got to the sand. I said, no, you're going to surf today. They're like, I don't know. I'm like, no, you're going to surf. And I'm going to teach you how. This is what I do, right? And what I would explain to them is the more you fall off that board, the more your body, which has its own intelligence, is figuring out how to not fall. So the more fun we have out here, I want you to fall as many times as we can, which would instantly mess with their psychology, because it's like, no, I need to stay up. No, bro, we're going to just play. Permission to play. And guess what? The other surf schools reported me because I was teaching people to learn too fast, and it was making their businesses look bad.
Right.
Wow.
I believe that. It's the mental.
No other institutions do things like that.
Right. That's amazing.
That is.
No, honestly, I didn't have a permit, and they knew it.
So they got you on a technicality. Right, totally. You're not supposed to be operating on this beach.
That is powerful, though. Permission to play. And, I mean, what if we were brought up, maybe some people were, but what if we were brought up in that exact ethos is fall as much as you can. Make mistakes as much as you can.
I've always had that concept, even like in something as stupid as like when we go snowboarding, and it's like, if you didn't fall today, then you didn't try anything new today. Like, you found just the easiest way to get through it, and you just wanted to get down it as many times as you could. And it's like, we talk about it all the time. It's the stumbles in life, and those are the things that I learned the most from. From my failures. My successes, I learned hardly anything from.
Right.
Other than like, okay, I'm just going to continue doing that, and we'll see how far it takes me. But my failures, those are the things that have set me in new directions, and I've learned so much from, because I've pushed myself because of those.
Yeah, I mean, there's trying, and there's the psychology behind it of when I am falling, my body is figuring out as we speak. I'm doing this, but this is also simultaneously happening. There's an excitement there.
Yeah,
It's living consciously, though, like that, and that's a hard thing for people to do. Like, that was a hard thing for me to wrap my head around. Of like, I'm going to think, like, make a conscious decision of who I want to be in this moment and how I want to handle this moment. But it's incredibly hard for me to consistently do. And so that was one of the first things that came to mind when I knew you were going to be on, was like, I want to know what tricks you have,
or what tools,
when I'm having those days where I'm like, oh man, it's so hard to stay in that zone,
to find
and
alignment.
do that. Like, that's
so here's what I would suggest, because this comes up a lot. Because they're like, what about you? Do you have bad days? I'm like, days? Not necessarily. It's because I understand what's going on, right? So trauma occurs. There's many different versions of it. There's like blunt trauma, acute trauma, et cetera, et cetera. We all have been traumatized, by the way, just by seeing war and things of that nature, let alone like things that happened when you were a kid before you had implicit memory. But all that to say, the issue that most people are having is that they don't allow whatever is to fully complete itself, because the psychology jumps in. And I'll give you an example, right? Somebody will come to me and they'll say, he broke up with me, that bastard. And then her girlfriends and everybody else are saying, like, he didn't deserve you anyway, girl. You are so much better than him. And what she'll do is she'll go into her psychology, right? And push down and push down and push down all of what needs to be felt all the way through. And she'll push it down. And just like a beach ball, right? Trying to push a beach ball underwater, it usually slides out in places you don't want it to. And so all that pushing away and repressing, and especially young boys, because I remember by the time I was 8, it was big boys don't cry, don't be a little pussy, like man up, et cetera, et cetera. So you're talking about that's trauma by itself, right? If a kid is repressing what is, right? Because why I don't have quote unquote bad days is when things happen with my wife and I, with my kids, in my business, when certain deals go away, I feel what I need to feel all the way through, and then it just goes away. It goes away because my body just needs to just move the energy. I had a pit bull Weimaraner named Spirit, and Spirit one day when I was still living in Hancock Park, ran out of the front door and went into the street. And I screamed so loud as a car came screeching towards her. So she's just frozen, right? And then I go, get in the house. And she runs in the house. And when she gets in there, she starts to shake. Well, Spirit was doing what all of us should do, which is she was discharging the energy. She was scared. That was a moment. She went into freeze. Fight, flight, freeze, appease. Fight, all of us. Flight, all of us. Freeze, all of us. Appease. Here, I'm going to tell you something interesting. For 10 years, I've been going all over the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Costa Rica, LA, Canada, everywhere, doing these workshops, nervous system somatic workshops. And there is an exercise, a few of them, that we do where we tee it up by saying that what imprisons you also points to your freedom. So the very thing that you're hiding, that's been imprisoning you, is actually the key to your actual freedom, like real talk. And then we give them an opportunity to share something that they've held shame or guilt around. Now I'm going to ask you guys, I want to hear what you think. Of the percentage, let's say there's 100 people in the room, what percentage in that room do you think has had sexual abuse in some form or fashion?
80%.
I was going to say 80.
Probably a good 80 to 90%.
Mm-hmm. Yep. 80 to 90%.
Wow.
Always.
Yeah.
Anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Like 10 years. Every single time. Both ways. Men and women. Mm-hmm. Period. Now, that's living in their bodies. Right? Do you know how many stories I've heard of the 17, 16-year-old girl that went to the party, that drank too much, and the next thing you know, she wakes up with the football team on top of her? Do you know how many stories I've heard of the grandfather, the sick grandfather that did the thing from 8 to 13 years old? Do you know how many stories I've heard, self-included, where somebody went too far in college? I went too far in college, and I had to own that. Right? When the Me Too stuff came out, I was like, oh, here it comes. Because I did stupid shit. Now, I apologized. I went back to those particular women and said, hey, I own this. This was fucked. I'm so sorry. I feel terrible. What can I do? I just owned it, heart open. But I share that to say that's just one example. And usually when people do this exercise, you know what happens? We give them an opportunity to go again. What do you think happens?
It's not as shameful.
Right.
That, one, they feel, now I'll go to that, right? So the exercise closes and we have them journaling and all that stuff. And then we break down, it's the end of the night. We say, okay, what are you guys aware of? And you know what people will say? And we've seen miracles. They'll say, I feel lighter than I've ever felt in my life.
Of course, all that baggage
I feel
you
freer.
let go of.
That, right? It's because they never let it complete.
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
assault, rape, etc. All these things are bad.
Yeah.
And if I'm 16 and I get raped by the football team and I don't allow my body to feel how heavy that is, and I repress and I push down and I justify and I logic and I say I'm dirty and all the other stuff, but I never feel it, then that's going with me for the next 20, 30 to 40 years, period, until I feel it all the way through and allow the body to release. So we've had women come in there who hadn't had a period for 16 years. And the next day they start their period. We've had people come in who couldn't have children. And within 2 months of leaving our room, they send us a picture.
Ultrasound.
It's
Wow.
crazy what happens when you let the body feel the thing.
And let the body release
Long
the
story
thing.
short, let the body feel.
We were just talking about that in regards to grief. We just had that conversation. I was saying that grief will wait. Like when you lose someone in your life, like until you go through the full grieving process, it'll just sit there and wait as long as you you push it away until. But it's always going to be there. And it's like, and when you haven't gone through the full process, because just the mention of a name or the thought of something just completely breaks you down to tears, and you're just an emotional mess. And it's like, yeah, you've got so much to go through to get to the point where you can look back on something fondly and realize, like, okay, I've gone through majority of those feelings now. It doesn't feel as heavy, and it doesn't feel like it's affecting my daily life, and it's not there's no repression involved in it.
So, Preston, for the people that, and I ask this because there's someone in my life with this, right? Like, yes, there is a lot of trauma there, but I don't have time to go and dive into that. I can't open up that box. I can't dive into that. Like, who knows what's going to come out? I'm busy. I got my career. I got kids. I got the stresses with other things. I can't do it.
And once I open that box, man,
knows
oh
what's
my
gonna
God,
come
how
out?
bad is it going to get?
So what do you say to those people? Because obviously the going through that, as you say, would only make the rest of their life easier. But for those people that are paralyzed with fear of opening that box up of that trauma, what is some encouragement we can give them to try, and where do they start?
Absolutely. So there's two places I can go with this. The first one is one of the best things you can do, because we are social beings, right? And so shame hides, right? We want to reveal. We want to shine the light so there's no boogeyman anymore. And so anybody who's in that space, just find one safe person, one safe person, and share some of what's going on. Do you know, I was sexually abused as a child by a family friend's son. And I did not share that with my mother until I was 40. I held it. Now, I told other people, but I didn't tell my family, because we were the family that didn't talk about stuff, right? One of the best things you could do to just help dissipate and clean the channel, because a body of water without an inlet or an outlet is a swamp. And a swamp creates dis-ease. Everything we're doing here is circulation. One of my favorite quotes from the Gnostic Gospels of Thomas reads, "If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. But if you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you." Now, let that land for a moment, and then think about emotional eating, emotional shopping. Think about the people that use sex as a weapon. Think about all the stuff, all the dis-ease that we see in the world. I almost can guarantee you that there's a correlation between that and something they haven't felt all the way through. And so I have these programs where I help people, and one of the quotes we always start with is, "It's not the load that breaks us down, but the way we carry the load." And so you have signed up to work with me and my team to let us carry some of it with you. And just people want to exhale. Do you know how fucking hard life is? They just want to go, right? Find people who can hold it. That's one.
I love that. It seems so logical, right? Just find someone that you can speak to. But
That's always the problem with, like, when you start getting into this, is like, you hear the words and it sounds so easy to do, but it's taking that
especially when there's shame around.
There's shame, because shame is a fortress that is hard to get out of.
Correct. That's why you got to find one safe person. I'm not saying you got to go to the whole world, right? I do this for a living, and I kept it from my mom until 40. right? Like, I get it. It's a lot. There's a lot in these conversations. The second one, and I want to, it's really just circling back. One of the best ways to start to heal yourself, because you don't need to go sit on the couch and like talk to a therapist. By the way, therapy can be dangerous sometimes because you're recycling without feeling, right? There's some therapies, awesome. Some of them, talk therapy, they are not actually a good idea for most people. That's a side note. The second way to begin to heal this process is to get as happy as humanly possible for no reason. You don't actually have to go back to the thing per se. As much as if you fill your cup and start to give, it starts to overflow, you will be so elevated that some of those things won't matter anymore.
It's true. It's kind of like it's kind of like the video of water, right? And you have brown water, let's say, old dirty water, and you turn on the faucet and you let the water run, and at some
eventually
point
runs.
So the more you bring in, the more happiness, the more joy, the more joy alarms you set, right? And you could feel it spontaneously. Then the cleaner the water is. What do you think about things like EMDR for therapy?
Epic.
What? I'm sorry. What is EMDR?
It's emotional. I forget how it breaks down, but it's the rapid eye movement. So you can do it with you get a target of something that you go back to, let's say from childhood, that you're holding on to, right?
Okay.
And then either with fingers, or you can do it with two things on the wall. And through your eye movement, the brain starts to bring stuff up. And there's a whole lot more to it, but you can access things that just sitting there and talking of what you're conscious of, you have to get into the subconscious, and you could start to do that through eye movement.
I did that in therapy.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. She and I didn't completely understand the psychology of it, but she had like a it was almost like an antenna. So she was moving that and having my eyes follow it while she was talking to me about things going on. And when I was in it, I was like, what am I doing right now? Like, this feels absolutely ridiculous, you know? And then, but it's funny. It's kind of the same way when I talk about like hypnotherapy, you know, it's, you're kind of doing it at first and you're like, I don't get it. And this seems like some sort of, it's supposed to be some magical experience, but I'm not feeling the magic. So then you start second guessing yourself, and you're closing your eyes really tight and you're trying to see colors and see whatever that they're talking you through, and you're not doing it. And then all of a sudden it's over and it's like, man, I'm judging myself. Like, I wasn't hypnotized at all. Like, I missed the whole thing. And it wasn't until I sat down and went, okay, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm just going to like kind of relax with this and trust the process. There's science behind it. It was amazing when she was doing that, and I'm watching. It was crazy how things dramatically changed within my life.
Yeah,
Incredible.
Hypnotherapy was the same thing. I always tell people, like, I can't tell you half of what was said to me while I was under, but literally within a week's time, I felt less stressed. I wasn't as like quick to just lose my temper or like it absolutely fundamentally changed the way I reacted to things. And I can't explain it, and maybe it's not my job to explain it. Like, there's a certain point where I go, listen, it's working, so okay, I'm just going to keep doing what it is I'm doing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I saw a video of yours years ago now, because I've kept up with you for a long time. And
Randy was super excited.
I was excited. I was excited you were coming on today.
When you agreed to be on here.
Yeah.
And so we actually had to research much more than you did. Randy's been
amazing.
a fan of yours for years.
One of the things that, again, I am forgetting the exact video, but so much of the somatic experience of feeling, and I think it was one of your workshops, and it was showing, little bits and pieces of what it is that you and your wife do. And just the idea, I saw people screaming and crying and moving, And that somatic expression of getting things out of the body that you're holding on to. And look, I like to maintain control. I like to figure things out. I like to understand mechanisms. But sometimes it's why traditional talk therapy, after years of doing it, I went to a Reichian therapist. Have you heard of that? Reichian? And I was on a
table.
I was on a table, and I was breathing and using this Oregon energy, and doing. And I was like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what I'm doing, but I knew I needed something more that I needed to get out. And all of a sudden, I was following his finger and doing something, and I just felt my body started getting warm, and I started thinking of food because that's what grounds me and comforts me. And I was like, and then I felt this. And my breath, and I was like, oh shit.
What's going on?
What's about to happen? Yeah. And then I started sobbing. And then he was moving me to say these different things. And I was hitting the table and screaming. And I walked out of that session. I think I was almost crawling. I was like, it was like 20
years of sitting on a couch.
I felt exhausted. But what I realized, and I think a lot of the transformational work you do, is you are so articulate with your words and you put things together in such a way where people can understand.
Yeah.
But so much of it is not even about understanding. It's bypassing all of that to feel.
It's just taking yourself out of the logic of it and going, okay, I'm just going to go along with this.
Right.
Like I'm going to trust this person and I'm just going to play along. Because I don't understand it. I do not understand it. I probably, for the most part, won't ever understand it.
But I feel better.
I have to be okay with that.
But I feel better, right?
Because it helps me feel better. Yeah.
Well, it depends on the setup, right? So, for instance, one of the reasons why our workshop is so amazing is we are hitting you with like 50 different techniques all at once, including using the other people in the workshop. It's not a seminar. It's not writing notes. It's none of that stuff. You are it. You are a science experiment. Yeah. And everybody else's bodies, because we're animals, right? Like we read each other. Right? You can feel when somebody is in their body. You can feel when somebody wants to fuck you. You can feel it. You're like, yo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Put your energy down, bro. Like,
right. Right.
We use all of it, and music and laughter and play and all of these different techniques. People who are in the work, who come to our stuff, are like, yo, that shit is straight masterful. And they often will say things, and this is just me, I'm saying it's the humblest way. They'll say, you guys are 10 times better than Tony Robbins, and nobody knows about you. And that's a compliment and a slap in the face, and it's awesome. I love it anyway.
Right.
But we can't put cameras up because it's so fucking personal. And it is an ego annihilation. And so people wouldn't go where they go. And this is the piece I wanted to hit on. Who's guiding you matters, and who else is in the room matters, because all of it is a part of the soup and the magic. That this podcast is dope as hell because it's you three, and not if you replaced one of you, it wouldn't be as dope, right? It's actually the magic of you three and your synergy and your collective yes. And so imagine that in a room with 50 other epic people who are all so committed to the best version of themselves, with two leaders, a woman and a man, who stand in proxy for the conscious mom or dad you never got, where you get the play and the ass kicking all in one space, right? That shit is cool. It's amazing. And I do it because my life was saved by it, right? I went and did all of these different techniques and worked with all these different people for myself. And then I became so in my own pocket that people were like, yo, what did you do? And then I had to say, well, you can get a piece over here and a piece over there and a piece over there. And eventually I met my wife and we were like, let's just put them all together and then amplify them. And so we have this one jambalaya soup where you come into and you got the whole thing.
That's amazing.
So impressive. I want to come and do one of your workshops.
Oh, absolutely. I There's no question. I
absolutely want to experience this. You sound incredible. I'm so grateful that we've been able to connect and speak with you. Everything that you say resonates with me. You drop knowledge and bombs, and I'm like, oh my God, write that shit down. I want to
make sure
wall.
and put on our website too all the information for people to get in touch with you, because I think it's a real. It's just, you are an invaluable tool, and I think what you are, what you're bringing to people's lives and allowing people to experience is incredible.
Yeah, what you're teaching is
as
so
many
beautiful.
people as possible should know of what it is you're doing and experience it.
So you have your latest book that is out. You said it is on pre-sale right now, right? People pre-order right now, and it's called Spiritual Millionaire. Where can people find that? Where can people find you? How can people get in on these workshops? I'll see them there, by the way.
So the book can be ordered at prestonsmiles.com/book. And then you can, at my website, prestonsmiles.com, you can find the Bridge Experience. We're going to be in Australia in October and Austin in July, 2 weeks from now, and then Austin again in January. So hop in one of them. It's super fun. It's super private but beautiful and life-altering across the board. And literally, let me just say this again. Thank you guys for the work that you do and the work that you've done to be in the position to offer this stuff to people. Because you will never see the end of your giving. You will never see the end of you three figuring out your schedules and your lives enough to be in a position where you can support even that woman before me, right? That's going to change lives. And it seems like, oh, it's just a podcast and it's not. This is the kind of stuff that creeps into people's consciousness and makes them different forever. And so a big thank you to all three of you as well.
Thank you, Preston.
Thank you. That was incredible to hear from you. I appreciate that.
Yes, I appreciate it. We all do. That's amazing to hear, and thank you. And to everyone that is listening to us right now, thank you so much for tuning in. This episode definitely goes up in one of my absolute favorites of all time for us. I hope that you guys enjoyed it too. If you haven't already, please subscribe, follow us. It really helps more than you know. And it helps us bring even better and amazing guests like Preston here that we have for our season 2. That's because of you guys following along on our journey. So please tap into that. If you like to watch your podcasts, we do actually offer that right now. So you can head over to oldishpodcast.com. You'll see the options over there and our membership tiers that we have. But if you are tuning in and you are watching us right now, stay tuned for after the show.
Hey, if you're going through something right now, if you need additional support, then please reach out to me at randyspelling.com/help or go to my Instagram at randyspelling.